the drywall, or you need to have it professionally dried, or you need to deal with it. You can't just let it. I was like, I see that, but I don't want to deal with it. And also be paying attention to like runoff if you're living on hillsides, even slight hillsides. If all of a sudden there's river coming down, directed at your house, just pay attention to like your crawl space, and because water collecting your crawl space that doesn't dissipate quickly can definitely lead to mold, and it's not obvious. So if anything that you can be more proactive in these times, just taking a look at your house and anything that is out of the ordinary.
In some ways, just going downstairs or under your house with a flashlight for a few minutes just to check stuff out. Now, I would imagine that after the amount of rain we had over the last few days, although it seems to sometimes break up and get worse anyways. Yeah. I'm not a weatherman, but at some point there's maybe less you can do to fix it, I would imagine. I mean, there's so much rain coming down. It's a once in a I haven't seen rain like that in a long. I guess
normally
it
happens at least once or twice a season.
So if you go down and you're looking, you see a little bit of water in your crawl space or a little bit in your basement. I mean, how aggressive should somebody attack that, knowing how hard it just rained?
Well, it's basically a sign that there's an issue. So, I mean, I lived on a hillside once. It wasn't that extreme, but after like a day like yesterday, I had some water coming into my basement, and I just did a French drain around the back of my house, which diverted the water. So it's something to pay attention to, and to solve that issue, now or before the next one hits. Because basically, you need to dry out whatever. If you find the water, even in a crawl space, you should want to probably pump it out. But if it's in your basement, a living space, even an unfinished,
you're probably a little bit more worried about it. If it's in your basement, where your kids sleep or something.
Yeah, and if it's showing,
they're more worried about it.
And if it's showing, there's a lot that's not showing. So that's why when it shows, because the water can be held up in walls, or could be absorbed by drywall and framing and stuff like that without showing. So when it does show, that means generally that there is a significant issue.
If you see water, I mean, you talked about mold growing in 48 to 72 hours after water maybe protrudes into your home. How do you dry it then? I mean, is it get a rag? Is it get out a hairdryer?
Well, professional companies basically use extractors and suck it out, or, but if you're a homeowner, you can use shop vacs, sump pumps, and dehumidifiers and heat. So you don't want to, if mold has started and you found mold, you don't want to use a fan, because the fan will spread the mold spores. But dehumidifiers and heaters, and exposing, say it's in your carpet, say you have a carpet in the basement, well, you got to lift the carpet and get some air under it. You can't just, dry the surface. I was actually in a house recently, and they had a mold in their house. They don't quite know where it came from. Because they did a type of test that it just did a dust sample from the carpet. And then the gentleman remembered that he had cleaned the carpet quite a few times with a steam cleaner, but wasn't sure that he got all the water out. So there could have been water collecting under it, because, the surface of the carpet was dry. But that doesn't mean that the pad or the under
the
part
subfloor.
Subfloor was dry, yeah.
The plywood that's all the way underneath, which, just starts to get that little bit of moisture, and it just can't pop out of there easily.
Yeah.
Can't dry.
Yeah.
We're here with Scot Appert with BioHealthy Homes. Scott, we just have a couple of minutes before we have to go to break, but I do want to ask you, if moisture comes in and you have to, as you said, you do have to deal with it. At what point do you go, and this may be hard to judge, but at what point do you go, I can probably look at this and I'll dry it off? And at what point are you like, man, I got a major problem, or should somebody come look at it no matter what, because a small problem can really turn into a bigger one?
Well, there's a couple issues. One, how much time do you have to devote to it? So, because it needs to be dealt with. So if you don't have time or the willing, the energy to deal with it, then definitely call somebody in. And I think just be willing to, if you are going to look at it, be willing to admit that maybe it's a little bit bigger than I can handle. And if it's just a little tiny leak and you can dry it and you can investigate it and make sure but using moisture meters, and a professional is a good idea, because we have moisture meters, we have knowledge,
It might be a lot of water you can't see.
Yeah, and we can do testing that to verify, and we'll can verify that it's dried. So that's part of it. You need to verify it's dried. If it's not dried properly, you can get the mold, and that mold can be an issue. Even if the mold grows and then quits growing and goes dormant because the water is dried, actually the mold spores are as toxic dead as alive because the mycotoxins don't go away.
So really, there's a lot of hidden issues that can come with this that you may not be able to see, touch, or smell.
Yes.
And that makes it.
Yeah.
That makes it scarier, Scott. If you can't
know.
see, touch, or smell it, most people, at least I personally, do not have a moisture meter. I don't know if other people out there do.
Yeah, and if you do smell something, mustiness, that is a sign that something's growing. It doesn't. You don't always have to smell it for there to be an issue, but that is one sign. So you need to have that professionally looked at.
Well, it sounds to me, Scott, like if you could prevent a lot of this stuff from happening, that's probably not only the better way to go, but less expensive rather than having to replace stuff. And as we talked about at the very top of our segment here, a lot of people might just have overflowing gutters.
Yeah.
And, it's dropping water onto the side of their house, and that's where the water's coming from. Yeah. So it might be as simple of a fix as the homeowner error of not cleaning your gutters.
Exactly, and it's protecting your investment.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Health is secondary, but first, is protecting your investment, right?
I don't know.
Water is always damaging.
I'd probably rock my health before the investment of my house. But
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
Well,
happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners out there. Enjoy the Turkey Day of tomorrow. You've been listening to Browse.